One of the things that I think is a big shift from what a lot of people tell you, not just in finance, but in life in general, is to set goals. And I think you should not set any goals. In fact, my biggest achievements in life came from me not having any goals at all. In fact, when I did have goals, I realized that they are limiting in a lot of different ways. And not setting goals actually freed me to break through a lot of the barriers that setting goals actually create. For example, let me tell you that there is a common stat that is thrown around that says if you just write down your goal, you are something like 40% more likely to achieve it. But does that even pass the sniff test to you? Does that sound reasonable? That if you wanted to get a $100,000 raise this year, you should just write it down because now you're 40% more likely to achieve it. Maybe you were 0% likely to achieve it before, but now it's a 50-50 game that you're going to get this. Or what about NASCAR racers? Shouldn't every one of these drivers write down on a piece of paper before the race that they want to win this particular race? Wouldn't they all have a problem of winning this race? Could they actually increase their percentages if everyone does it? And so writing down goals is kind of silly in my opinion because it doesn't really do anything. If you're really committed to a goal, it's going to be something that haunts your mind all the time that you're going to be thinking about because you really want it, right? It might be a purchase, or it might be a vacation, or it might be an experience, or it might be a role that you really want, but you probably really want it. If you have to write it down to remind yourself that you want it, it may be a goal, but it's a goal that lacks intrinsic motivation. The thing I don't like about goals is that they're kind of arbitrary. And while a lot of people will then try to break them down into SMART goals, I actually hate the idea of SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, because that's just assuming that everyone's goal is some sort of vague, unrealistic goal, that everyone wants to be a trillionaire, that everyone wants to be on the cover of People magazine. If that were the goal that most people were setting, then yes, going through the SMART goal exercise might be helpful in helping them to break it down into something maybe a bit more down to earth. But I don't think most people are setting those goals, especially the people that I'm working with. They are trying to pay off $500 on a credit card bill. They are trying to save $1,000. They are trying to save up a down payment to buy a car or buy their first house or save enough money to have a kid, whatever it might be. These goals are pretty mundane, normal, common, and realistic already. And so what I think is that in order to give yourself a chance to achieve the unachievable, you should not be setting goals at all, but you should be going through a different process. In fact, it's the process I use and have coined as dumb goals, because when I look back at what I've accomplished now, to have a multi-six-figure income that comes in regardless if I work or not, to have more views online, be able to buy multiple exotic cars, to be able to pay off my house, these are things that I never thought I would be able to do. And in fact, retiring in my 40s would have been something that I never even imagined was possible. And so the way I did it is what I call using dumb goals. Now, dumb is an acronym. It stands for direction, useful, making it regular, and building automation. And I want to explain that the dumb goal here is more of a method than a goal. So the D stands for direction, because what I think you need to do is just choose a direction. And this can be where setting an arbitrary goal comes into play. For example, when I started doing YouTube, all I wanted to do was get more helpful content out. That was my goal. And so my direction was to shoot videos and post them. And so I knew that shooting videos and posting them and doing that over and over again was pointing me in the right direction of providing valuable content. Now, if your goal is to save money for emergencies, it's kind of the same thing. you might want to pick an arbitrary number of $1,000. But now, how are you going to choose the activities that move you in the direction of that, right? It may be taking your spare change at the end of the day and putting it into a jar. It may be to find one opportunity to cut your costs this week. It might be to take on one babysitting job a month to bring in an extra $60 to put into that account. All of these activities are moving you in the right direction. Even though a $1,000 savings goal is kind of arbitrary, we're not focused on the $1,000 as much as we're focused on the activities that move us in a positive direction, that get us closer to the goal. And so you want to make sure that, like a mission statement, you have something like that arbitrary goal that is your North Star, but you are using that almost exclusively for just choosing activities that make progress towards that goal. The second piece here is the U. U stands for useful actions. Once we know what our North Star is and our direction, we are choosing a lot of different things that will get us there. Say you have a savings goal of $1,000 and you have some cost-cutting ideas and you have some income ideas and you are going to sell some things, right? Now what we want to do is we want to use our experiences with each of these to identify the most impactful actions that we can take to get us closer to the goal faster. So you might be saying, hey, listen, I spend a lot of time thinking about how to cut my spending down $2 a week. I look for cheaper lunches to buy, or I try to look for shortcuts on the way home to save on gas, but it just doesn't end up to much. And I spend a lot of time doing it. But you might say, it doesn't require me to spend a lot of time to find a babysitting job or mow the neighbor's lawn or something that will bring in some money. In fact, you might not even have to spend any time marketing those activities because there might just be a regular ongoing need. Your neighbor may have a child that needs babysitting once a week because they just want to go out for dinner. And so you don't have to think about it or prepare for it. It can be just something that's regular and you don't have to put any effort except for trading your time for that money. And you might be able to bring in $20, $30 an hour. And so you might be able to bring in $40, $60, $80 in one fell swoop without putting out a lot of effort or changing your schedule or traversing the world. And so as you do this, what you will continue to do is determine the most impactful and useful actions to get you progress fastest. You will prioritize all of these things that you have tried and experienced to make sure that you are refining where you are spending your time so that it is most impactful to you. The next step is M, which stands for make it regular. And what I mean by this is that massive goals and massive achievements are not accomplished overnight. They are usually the result of small, consistent, meaningful, compounding actions. What this means is that you have to figure out a way to make these actions and these decisions that we have chosen previously regular in your life. You have to find a way to make them an integral piece of your life, almost like a habit, something that happens maybe weekly, monthly, maybe daily. But you have to keep doing them and figuring out how that they can be a regular part of your routine. So for example, for me, I wanted to put out content on YouTube. And one of the things that I decided was that once a week, I would shoot a video and post it. And it was a fairly small commitment at the time. And as I realized that the process could be streamlined, and as I got more experience with it and got better and more efficient with it, I realized that I could do it 2 or 3 times a week. And then when I realized that I could do it 2 or 3 times a week, I found other ways to make it even easier. So for me, one of the things that I did was put a motion sensor, the lights in the basement, so that I didn't even have to switch on the lights, so that I could go into the basement to record videos and the lights would come on automatically. It just made the process easier for me. It took away excuses and it made me more productive because now I didn't have to worry about turning on and turning off the lights. And when you're doing something that regularly, even sometimes these small tasks, which feel pretty trivial, they can be a barrier. Mentally, emotionally, maybe physically, but they can still be a barrier that makes it harder for you to engage in the tasks that you need to. And so what we want to do is we want to take away as many of those barriers as possible so that we can make these small, consistent, compounding tasks as regular as possible. Because the more regular they're going to be, the faster we're going to see results. If you're a salesperson and you know you're going to have to call each prospect 10 times before they're going to buy from you, why spread that out? Why call once a month so that you get the sale at the end of the year? Why not call once a week so you get the sale in a few months? Why not call once a day so you get the sale next week? This is the difference between the people who are successful at sales and the people who aren't. They think any moment might create the sale, and real salespeople know that they have to keep chipping away at it. And because they have to keep chipping away at it, they want to chip away as fast as possible and not wait for opportunities to knock on their door. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the B, building automation. If we want to accomplish amazing things, it can't necessarily be exclusively based on our efforts, especially if you have other responsibilities. Maybe you are trying to accomplish things on your own time. You are spending 40 hours a week at your office or your work, right? So it's only a part-time opportunity for you, maybe 4 or 5 hours a week, maybe not even that you have the opportunity to pursue your own personal goals. So you have to figure out how to build automation. Some of this can be done with technology to make sure that all of the little things that you are spending your time on are offloaded to a computer so that you are spending your time on the things that can't be duplicated with technology, right? So for me, building automation not only meant streamlining the process and taking away the obstacles so that I could be in front of a camera and record content, but ultimately it meant offloading and outsourcing the repeatable, regular, commoditized tasks that I was doing. And that really is editing the videos, creating the thumbnails, choosing the titles, choosing the metadata. So some of that stuff can be done by anyone, not just me. My value and my unique skill set meant that I should be creating the content, but not necessarily be burdened with the other work that could be 80% of the overall work. And so while I suggest that you take some small steps towards this, like the motion detecting lights that I talked about earlier, but you can take some bigger steps, like I did later, by hiring a video editor, someone who takes my content, understands my ideas and my processes, and then replicates those and offloads that and frees me up to focus more on the things that we talked about in the useful actions section, that are the things that drive the biggest impact. We've got to figure out where our value comes from and focus in on that and offload, automate, and outsource all of the rest of the things that we can so that we can make progress as fast as humanly possible. And so the process is what is valuable here. And in fact, if you were trying to save $1,000 and you went through this process and you were babysitting once a week for $80 and you were bringing in $320 a month, well, you'd have that $1,000 at the end of a few months. But if you follow the dumb goals process, which is not really goal setting, it's a process, you'll keep doing that. And your initial goal of setting $1,000, which I said is kind of arbitrary, will be met after a few months, but then it'll be doubled a few months after that. And it will be tripled a few months after that. And if you continue to do this, and maybe you start bringing on other people who are babysitting, and you vet other people, and you build an app that makes vetted babysitters available to people in your neighborhood or the country or the world, and you continue to outsource and automate where you can, all of a sudden, that $1,000 goal that initially drove you and gave you direction could mean that you have blown through it, far surpassed it, and have achieved something extraordinary with simple, consistent, meaningful compounding actions. And in fact, having that arbitrary goal of $1,000 might be a barrier for you. You might save that money in a few months and then say, hey, I achieved my goal. I can stop now. And instead of finding that breakaway velocity that starts making things easier and starts making income more regular, you're set back because the goal that was set actually capped your progress. So don't let specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound goals limit you. Use the dumb goal process to figure out how you can exploit routine in your life to achieve the unachievable.